Welcome to Veterans Helping Veterans, a service of Veterans Council of Indian River County. And here's your host, Martin Zickert.
Well, good morning, everyone. Actually, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining the Veterans Helping Veterans radio show. And I am not Marty Zickert. I am Bruce Cady, standing in for Marty Zickert. Today, Martin Luther King Day is the day that we're recording today's show. And I'm joined here with Telly Antona, and our special guest is Father Dave Newhart, chaplain for the Veterans Council. Telly, let's start off with you. What does Martin Luther King mean to you and to your world?
You know, I was thinking extensively about this, and I do, because I have two young sons. And what was interesting for me was doing a little bit of research, and Loving versus Virginia was the decision that was made to allow interracial marriages. And I think before the show, Father Dave, you were talking about 66 was desegregation. Mm-hmm. So 67 was Loving versus Virginia. And then in 1968, of course, that was the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King. What that means for me is a progression of change. It also means that I enjoy the privileges, the freedoms that I enjoy today. It means that, how can I put it? Equality. I know that we tend to forget. It's only been just a little over 50 years. Yeah. My mom was 12 years old. Mm. So what it means to me is, the beginning of change. And change is something that's constant, and people don't like change. We as people, we don't like change. I, however, do. And I'm grateful for the sacrifices of people that came before me. So I guess more gratitude is what it means to me.
So, Telly, that's a good word for this day and this week and this time. Father Dave, before we got started, you had some interesting thoughts. What does this whole topic bring to your mind?
Well, one of the things about, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was, his was a nonviolent sort of revolution in its own right. And going back through some of the history and reviewing some of the history, the numbers of times that he was willing to put himself out, a number of times that he and the Reverend Abernathy were arrested and placed in jail. And one time they were bailed out, and he has no idea who paid the $178, for his bail. And, but I think each generation, it means something totally different. Telly, you could almost be my daughter. You're so young. But
thank you.
And I would be happy to have you as my daughter.
Well, adoption papers can be signed.
Okay, I'll be glad to do that. As long as I can claim you on my taxes.
Works for me.
So, but you grew up in a time where there was a lot more opportunities for you.
That's true.
And when Dr. King was assassinated when I was 13 years old. And so I lived through a lot of that tension, but to a certain degree, and in many ways, I was sheltered from it. I was a military dependent. My dad was in the Air Force. He was a pilot in the Air Force. And, so on base, while there was some tensions, there wasn't as much because everybody who was on base was always moving from one place to another, and you always had to make new acquaintances and new friends. And so some of those racial boundaries were easily dissolved, during that time. Yeah. But when he was out in California in 64, 65, we lived in Manhattan Beach. And during that time period was the Watts riots. And we were sheltered from that because we didn't, live in that part of town. But I started experiencing some of that. in 65 and 66 when he was in Vietnam. And as he was training and cross-training or being certified to fly C-123s in Vietnam, and we were in, it's the first time I really, after seeing the Watts riots, experienced anything in the public that I was associated with that talked about segregation. And we were in Fort Walton Beach area, and there were still signs about segregation for water fountains, segregation for bathrooms, segregation in different areas. And this was the first time I'd really been fully exposed to that. And I was only 10 years old at that time, and I couldn't quite understand it. And so as we go through there, and then when he got back, we went to he's stationed at Holloman Air Force Base, and we were bused for the junior high. We were bused into town, and we were in a part of town that there was a lot of racial tension. So that's when I first experienced all of that was happening. And so as we go through, those periods of time, and even when I joined the service, a lot of that just was, the segregation wasn't there in the service. You were
Sure.
You covered each other's
Right.
back. You were there. I worked the flight line, and we were prepping, airplanes to go. We were pre-flighting them, and I worked midnight shift. And, we all had fun together. I mean, we worked hard together because we had something in unity. So every generation, I think, experiences something totally different. And each generation has a different aspect as to what Martin Luther King Day means.
Sure.
And depending on what part of the country you live in, also makes a big difference, because living in the Southwest,
That is true.
the ethnic differences in the Southwest are a lot different than the ethnic differences in the South and in the Northeast. So wherever you go, you experience those kind of things. And fortunately, I was raised with a different attitude that, their ethnicity is ethnicity, but it doesn't change who you are, what you are, or the qualities of a person that you are. And so I think I take some of that from the 60s when, that happened. I couldn't understand why there was so much tension. And only looking back, and everybody has 20/20 hindsight,
Sure. Right.
only looking back can you start seeing some of, the reasons why the march, from Selma or Montgomery to Selma, why those things were so important. And the courage, you have to think about the courage that they had to have to put themselves out on the line for, desegregation. And, not only just, the African Americans, but also you have to take a look at those that were Anglo that supported them through that whole
Sure.
thing.
That's true.
And so
Our generation owes them so very much. I can't speak for you, Telly, but during my time of service, we had everyone. Everyone. There wasn't a specific, creed, race, religion. I served, I was still on active duty when the Don't Ask, Don't Tell came out during the Clinton time, where the gays started to be embraced. But I believe that our generation that served, say, from the 90s to current, really owes, a debt of gratitude to the, as you mentioned, Father Dave, is very much a violent, I was almost going to say almost violent, but no, it was a violent reaction of this country towards that change. And Martin Luther King and his teammates and cohorts did it as nonviolently as they could. And it was just fabulous.
And I think that's a good point, because it wasn't that movement that created violence, because he was totally about nonviolence. Yep. And so when you did sit-ins, they were nonviolent. When you did, when you got on a bus or you went to a campus or you marched, it was a nonviolent march. And yet the group or the ethnic group that didn't want the change, they were the ones who exhibited the violence to prevent the change. And I think that's where most of it came from. And to me, it's a sad state that, we can't negotiate. We can't, work with each other.
Sure.
And so, and I think today sometimes we get still caught up in that violence, and it's becoming more today. And we need to go back and reflect on what Dr. Martin Luther King said, about nonviolent demonstrations and this racial tension and being nonviolent. And I think we can come to greater understanding of each individual, from that standpoint. So
what I always tell my children, a lot of we as human beings, a lot of what we do, a lot of the dissension is out of fear. Mm-hmm. We fear what we don't understand. We fear change. And with that being said, the opposition was violent, because people can get to a point where they're in such fear of the unknown that you just lash out. It's understandable. It's very understandable. The way that I kind of capture the heart is where I appeal to with my children. And I make it known to them, if it wasn't for the civil rights movement, I wouldn't have you guys. You guys wouldn't, because, my kids are biracial. Mm-hmm. If it weren't for, that being a catalyst, I wouldn't be sitting here being a mom. And it's, one of the most important jobs that I would ever do in my life.
And the world wouldn't have two wonderful young men.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, yes. The good works that they do and continue to do. Yeah.
They're good human beings. That's all I can ask for. But I want them to know, just as much as their dad's heritage, because he's Cuban. I want them to know both, but they don't have to choose. They're people. Yeah. And that's very important. And I think also a lot of today's generation, like you said, experiences it in a different way, but does not understand that these are things that people felt very strongly about. And I think that today we use it. We use the fight of the generation before us, the fight to end segregation, to just segregate each other. We, divide still.
Yeah, we do.
Well, I agree 100% within the greater population in this country right now. There's a lot more division than I've seen in a very long time. But I would argue that within the veterans community, you're not seeing that.
No.
Telly and I were talking on the phone this morning, and we were talking about our group, the younger veterans, the next generation. We represent every race, ethnicity, background, mm-hmm. political belief. We have a druid.
Yes.
Yeah.
A Viking.
A Viking. That's right. So seriously, we have, and we're half female. Half of us are female.
You had to clarify that.
Right? Yeah. But and also I see that within our other veterans groups too. We have the American Legions, the VFWs, that are representing. They have that common background. They may have grown up in different areas. They may have grown up in different faith groups, but they served together. They wore that uniform. They took that same oath to defend our Constitution, and that makes us brothers and sisters, regardless of the color of our skin or
right. And
that's what you were
regardless of what part of the country you came from and what the demographics were and what the stereotypes that you were raised in. So.
Okay, well, I think we're going to take a short break to honor our sponsors for this show. So come right back after the short break.
For a sensational meal, great wine, or craft cocktail in Vero, look no further than the Blue Star on 14th Avenue in downtown.
Hi, I'm Chef Kitty, and I'd just like to share some of our wonderful fall specials with you. We've got a squash salad going on right now with some red and gold beets, crumbled chèvre, lemon pecan dressing, and arugula that is absolutely dynamite. I also have on my menu Chinese 5-spice duck. It's coming with a sweet potato and Brussels sprout hash and a wild blackberry blueberry chutney, which is amazing. And then we've also got our world famous Jumbo Diver sea scallops, which come with a creamy spinach, tomato, and shiitake mushroom orzo. So don't miss it. Join us at the Blue Star.
Open Tuesday through Saturday for your dinner dining needs. Call today for reservation 772-492-9057. See you at the Blue Star.
Hi, I'm Vicki Soule, CEO of Treasure Coast Community Health. Treasure Coast Community Health has been serving Indian River County for 25 years. How did we get here? It took a commitment to you to provide you with the most affordable, high-quality, integrated network of healthcare available anywhere. It took board-certified doctors and dentists and a dedicated staff to ensure that you receive the best possible care. It took more locations to meet the need. And now, Treasure Coast Community Health has 6 locations, serving all of Indian River County with health centers in Vero, Sebastian, and Fellsmere. Our services are available to everyone, whether insured or not. And at TCCH, no one gets turned away due to an inability to pay. We rely on donations from generous benefactors to continue our much-needed work. We accept Medicare, Medicaid, and almost all insurances. Call us at 772-257-8224 or visit us at tcchinc.org.
Hey, I'm Tommy, and I want to invite you to Vino Royale, right here on the water of Royal Palm Point. It's a wine bar, craft beers, and a place just to chill after work and enjoy the view on our luxurious deck overlooking the water. Look for our events, NFL Sunday tickets, bike nights, networking parties, and more. You will always feel comfortable at Vino Royale. That is our main goal. Stop in and check us out. We'd love to meet you. 97 Royal Palm Point, Vero Beach, Florida. We'll see you there. Don't forget, happy hour 4 to 7 every day.
Welcome back to the Veterans Helping Veterans Show, a service of the Veterans Council of Indian River County. Today, our special guest is Father Dave Newhart. He's the chaplain of the Veterans Council, and we're recording this show on Martin Luther King Day. And so we were reflecting on the impact that he has had on us as Americans and upon our military service. As when we were on break, we were talking about the conversation kept going, so that was kind of fun. What I wanted to share is I served on active duty from 1992 to 1996, then in the reserves till 2001. And when I was on active duty, I served at the Marine Forces Reserve Headquarters in downtown New Orleans, Louisiana. In the famous 9th Ward.
Nowlands.
That's right, the Naval Support Activity Nowlands. And I had an absolutely wonderful group of Marines that I worked with, that I worked for, and they worked for me. And one of the neatest memories I have of that time, I had 2 Marines who worked for me. They're corporals, Corporal Washington. Both their last name was Washington, and they were unrelated, but they had family in New Orleans, and they had chosen New Orleans for their duty station.
Awesome.
So they'd be close to family. And both of them would take me to their families for christenings, baptisms, funerals, and I'd be Lieutenant Bruce that they would bring in, and they'd open their homes and welcome me, and I'd get to know them, and they'd get to know me. And it was very natural and normal. Mm-hmm. And so as my son was born, they came to his bris, actually. Mm-hmm. My kid's mother is Jewish, so they had a bris. So it created a really kind of neat vibe. And coming from California, I kind of like really neat vibes. So Telly, how about you? Do you have any recollections from your time on active duty?
Well, I do, actually. But like you said, like Father Dave said, we have different experiences. For me, not only was I African American, but also a woman. So when I went into the military, I think, I never saw any color. I wasn't raised that way. And also, I have had an experience with racism. As a matter of fact, one of my first duty station was Camp Kyle, Korea. at that time, there were a lot of demonstrations by students. There were times when we couldn't go off base, and they, of course, didn't like Americans at all. But specifically, my race. And of course, I was always hard-headed, and I went ahead and went off base and alone. And I got to experience that at a level that I never had before. However, fast forwarding, I like my veteran community right now. Family. They're my family, and I'm very protective over them. That's why I think they call me mama behind my back.
No, we call you that to your face.
Yeah, that's true. But that being said, I love the camaraderie, the fact that the only thing that matters in the military, out of the military, between us is green. Green is the color that we see. And that, to me, means absolutely everything. Okay.
Well, I see Air Force blue, but that's beside the point.
But you get,
I get it.
so let me understand now, because I have a little bit of ignorance in this area. Do you guys ever wear green camo?
Not when I was in. Oh, yes, we did.
See,
yes, we did.
There you go, then.
Yes, I apologize. Mea culpa, mea culpa, mea culpa. Yes.
Yeah, I served with some Air Force airmen that wore
we wore green.
The woodland greens that I wore.
Yeah, but not camo. It was just straight green stuff.
Okay,
yeah,
so
it was great.
still
So
green.
I'll agree with you on that one. So
Thank you.
yeah, again, mea culpa, mea culpa, mea culpa.
Your experience, though, we are talking a little bit about yours.
Yeah,
too.
I came through and I enlisted when I was after I'd flunked out of college, and I explained that on the last time. And but I enlisted. I was in from 75 to mid 79, and in basic training where there was it's where you get, as they say, America is the melting pot. And once you get into basic training, it's like everybody there's no color at all.
You're liquefied at that point.
You are
You're just all being stirred up.
It's like, because if one messes up, you all pay for it,
man.
and so, that started it. And, there were certain things that did happen. And then you go off to your tech school and, you do that and you get your first base assignment. And, there was a lot of things. And like when I was stationed in Germany, they would bring in different shows to, the NCO club at that time. And it was, they would have country and western, they would have rock and roll, and they had a band called Wild Cherry back then. And so it was Motown stuff. But we all went, and there wasn't any kind of that segregation, and we worked together. And that's where I think the military is, is so strong. And true churches are like that too. You build that family, and that's what I see. Military is family, churches are family, and we are family, and we hold unity together, no matter who we are, what color we are, or even what service we served in.
Well, we do have a little bit of segregation when it comes to that. Air Force doesn't work. So.
Oh no, but we have the best golf courses, and
That's awesome. Well, I'd like to thank you both for spending time with me this afternoon. It's always a pleasure to come into the studio and share a mic with Telly and talk with interesting members of the community like Father Dave here. So my challenge to our community, maybe the two people and the dog that are listening to this broadcast, to go out and be good to each other. Go out and continue the works of Dr. Martin Luther King and continue to be good stewards of his message to the community. So once again, thank you all for joining Veterans Helping Veterans, the service of the Veterans Council of Indian River County.